so here is your CARS video. CARS stands for Controlled Articular Rotations, and all that means is that we're gonna pick a particular joint, just take it through its greatest, safest range of motion in the form of a circle. So we're gonna start with the cervical spine, AKA the neck, and we're gonna work our way all the way down to the toes. We would recommend that you practice this routine every damn day as often as you can, 3 to 5 reps each way every morning. So first things first, I'm gonna make balls with my fists and draw my shoulders down away from my ears. So I'm just thinking about moving the cervical vertebrae. So from the shoulders down, I'm in cement. I'm gonna take a breath in, curl my chin towards my throat. When I've maxed out cervical flexion, I'm then gonna rotate, dragging my chin, nose, and face over to the right shoulder. I'm gonna look over my right shoulder as much as I can, drop the right ear towards the right shoulder for what's called lateral flexion. Then I'm gonna rotate my chin, nose, and face up towards the ceiling as I continue to draw my shoulders down away from my ears. Then I'm gonna bring my left ear towards my left shoulder for lateral flexion on the left side. Rotate my chin, nose, and face over to the left to look over that shoulder as much as I can. Then curl my chin back towards the center. Reverse. Thoracic car. I'm gonna cross my arms over my chest, and now I'm gonna be in cement from the waist down. So belly button down, stay still. Crossing my arms over my chest, I'm just thinking about segmentally moving the vertebrae between the top of my thoracic spine and right about where my belly button is. So I'm trying to move just this space by itself. So I'll cross my arms over my chest. I'll start to curl my elbows towards my hips, keeping my shoulders over my hips. So as opposed to this, try to be here. Then, once I've maxed out flexion of the thoracic spine, I'm gonna hold flexion and rotate to one side, maxing out rotation. Then I'll go into lateral flexion. Then I'll start extending from the thoracic spine, keeping everything from the hips down completely still. Once I've reached max extension of the thoracic spine, I'll then laterally flex to the other side. Rotate as much as I possibly can, and then come back into flexion. That's our halfway point, so we'll reverse. For the scapulas, I'm trying to think about moving these independently of my spine. So I'm gonna start in a nice Y position, like I'm trying to hug my best friend. I'm gonna keep my arms parallel to the ground and try not to move them down or up, so they're between 2 planes of glass here. First things first, I'm gonna retract my scapula. So I'm pretending that there's a finger here that I'm trying to pinch using my scapulas. I'm gonna hold retraction as I elevate up towards my ears. From here, I'll protract and punch forward as much as I can, hold protraction and depress. Retract, elevate, protract, depress. So we're hitting the 4 corners here. Then we'll reverse. Trying to limit movement from the spine and just let the scapulas do the work. Shoulder car. I'll take the arm that's not moving, ball up my fist, drive my shoulder down. Externally rotate the arm that I'd like to move. Using all of this tissue, I'm gonna squeeze it into my chest, keeping my chest square, drawing my pinky up, keeping the hand nice and flat and the elbow locked out, coming into my max shoulder flexion. Trying not to get my head through the window or break at the thoracic spine as ways to fake shoulder flexion. So once I've hit that first roadblock, I'm gonna pretend I have an X on the inside of my arm, rotate that X away from me. So now my palm is facing away. I'm gonna continue to reach back until I get right about here. I'll stop, pretend I'm holding a beer, and I'm gonna dump that beer out as I continue to reach. Keeping the rest of my body completely still, just thinking about moving that shoulder within the shoulder socket. I'll get my arm as close to my body as possible, palm facing away. Finish with knuckles at the thigh. This is the halfway point. I'll reach back with the thumb, pause at that first roadblock, and start to bring the soft part of the arm back towards my face. Coming back into shoulder flexion, continuing to rotate down and across. For the wrists, I'm going to squeeze my elbows into my rib cage like I'm holding newspapers in my armpits. I'm going to hold both wrists out in front, curl my hands into fists, and I'm going to flex at the wrist maximally, keeping the soft part of my forearm up towards the ceiling. I'm going to curl into wrist flexion, continue to draw in pinky side, coming down into wrist extension, keeping the fist balled, coming out into thumb side, back up into flexion, thumb side, extension, in and up. For the elbows, same situation. Now, instead of thinking about just moving from the wrist and not from the forearm, I want to rotate from the forearm. So I want the hairy part of my arm coming up to where I can see it. I'm going to squeeze the soft part of my arm together. Then I'm going to try to rotate maximally externally as I then extend from the elbows, squeezing my rib cage. Reaching full extension, I'll then flip to internally rotate. Hairy part of the arm is up now. Continuing to squeeze my elbows into my rib cage, bringing the hairy part of my arm to meet the other part. Flip, extend, flip, flex. Hitting both directions. For the hip, I'll find a place on a wall or a bench or a couch, anywhere that you can hold on to something. So now I'm going to try to keep the rest of my body still and just think about moving this part of my leg within my hip capsule. So I'm going to want to try to limit movement from the low back and just make it all about my hip. So holding on to an object or a wall, all I'm going to do is pull my heel towards my butt. I can automatically feel my hamstrings turning on. Then I'm going to pull my knee towards my chest, trying not to bend the bottom leg or round from the lumbar spine as a way to fake more hip flexion. Once I get the knee as high as I can get it, I'm going to get it even higher. Then I'm going to trace my circle using my knee coming straight out to the side, keeping my hips squared in front of me. I'm going to try to leave my knee high. It's definitely going to fall, but I'm going to try to leave it high as I rotate to get my heel up to meet it. When I look down, my shin is more or less parallel to the ground. I'm continuing to draw my circle with my knee as I come back around, and then actively opening up that hip for hip extension. Notice that this is hip extension, not this, right? Because that's all lumbar spine. I'll finish halfway, breath in, back to open, knee and ankle equally at the same time, move straight out to the side. Knee comes forward, heel drops, knee moves into the armpit, chest, that's one. For the spine, I want to think about breaking the spine down into 3 pieces. So I'm going to try to move the low back, the middle back, and the upper part of the back as if they're 3 individual parts. So first we're going to move into spinal extension where I'm making a beautiful U shape, and then we'll move into flexion where I'm making a scaredy cat shape. So from here, what I'm going to try to do is I'm going to try to keep my scapulas from retracting. So if I find myself here, I know that I'm compensating spinal movement with retracting of the scapulas. So I'll start in the all fours position, always start with a big breath. Keeping the whole spine still, I'm going to turn my tail up towards the ceiling as I start to move into spinal extension using my lumbar spine. Belly button drops, rib cage drops. My sternum will now come down and forward, and the space between my scapulas drops and comes forward, as then the head is the last to move. I'll look up, take a big breath, keep the whole spine still, curl the chin towards the throat, push the back of the neck up towards the ceiling, Space between the shoulder blades, middle of the rib cage, bottom of the rib cage, and then finally the tail will tuck under. And I'll reach my greatest expression of spinal flexion. For the tibia, I want to think about moving from the knee down without compensating from the ankle. So the way that I'm going to start that is, I'm going to dorsiflex my foot. In other words, pulling the top of the foot up towards my shin. I'm going to lock that into place. I'm going to start with my heel grounded, swivel on the heel to rotate from the knee joint externally. I'm then going to hold that external rotation as I extend to right about here. Then I'm going to internally rotate from the tibia, not from the femur. So the femur will stay still, tibia rotates inward as much as possible. Hold internal rotation as I then flex back. Hold internal rotation, extend, flex, back. External, extend. Internal, flex. For the ankle, now I want my tibia to stay still, but now I want to see what the ankle can do. So I'm going to bear hug my right thigh, grasp onto my left arm, peel myself up. To keep the tibia still, I'm going to keep my hand here so that I don't feel any movement happening. Then I'm going to dorsiflex as much as I can, pulling my toes as close to my shin as possible. Holding dorsiflexion, I'm going to come in big toe side. Inverting that foot as much as possible, coming down into plantar flexion, so nice beautiful ballerina point. Coming out pinky toe side, back up into dorsiflexion, that's halfway. Out pinky side, ballerina point, big toe side, dorsiflexion. For the toes, I might stand or I might sit with my feet in front of me. I'll hold on to my legs to ensure that no movement is happening anywhere above the toes. So from here, I'm going to try to plant the outer four and lift the big toe without rolling onto the edges of my feet. So I'm just going to lift, hold, tap, 2, 3, planting the big toe. I'm going to lift the outer four, trying not to roll inward with the ankle. So plant the big toe, lift the outer four. Tap, 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 then lift all 10. Keep all the outer fours lifted, tap the big toe. Keep the big toes lifted, tap the outer four. Then, keep all 10 toes lifted and try to set them down one at a time to the best of your ability. And pick them up one at a time to the best of your ability. And so that is your CARS routine. This is the morning routine. It takes a few minutes to learn when you're first starting, but you should keep the tension really low, be explorative and curious. 3 to 5 reps each direction, each joint every morning should take you no more than 10 minutes every single day. It's the most potent thing that you can do for your joint health, getting fresh blood and nutrients to the area. And the main things that you want to keep in mind is when you're working a particular area, you're trying not to move from anywhere else in the body. That's what we call compensation. So you want to minimize compensation there. Any questions, you can always reach out to Tracy and I at vitalrootsmvmnt.com.